Henry, congratulations on the film. I believe, though, it started life as a short with the same name. Is that right?
Yeah, it did. We wanted to make a short because at that time, as a filmmaker, I really wasn't known, or I hadn't had a substantial track record with any of my shorts, and I was zero on paper, really. So we needed a proof of concept that kind of answered those fundamental questions when trying to raise finance. And I wanted to create that proof of concept because there was a lot of preconceived ideas about what the film might be, given that it looks and examines at the sort of broader ideas of youth and drugs in Britain. So the short film kind of said, no, it's not that, and it's not that, it's this.
Okay. So was there anything in the short that you weren't able to examine that the feature film format allows you to go into some depth?
Oh yeah, hugely. Like the family circumstances, the grooming process, the targeting, and then I think most crucially, the fallout 6 months on of what happens to Tyler and the trauma that he absorbs, and seeing the change in a young person when they're sort of dragged through that style of exploitation.
Now, you were originally a youth worker, and in fact, it's something you still do. I wondered whether the original idea and the story was inspired by one particular person or a series of events and experiences, or how did it come about?
There was a light bulb moment, certainly, when I was working in 2015 in a PRU, which is an educational setting for children who have been excluded from mainstream school. When a boy went missing, he was 15 years old, and he came back 3 weeks later. And I sat down with him, and upon arrival in his area, back from where he had been, his throat was slashed, and he had survived. But when I asked him where he had been, he said, I've been in Aberdeen, in Scotland. And I was pretty distressed by that. I'd seen a lot in my youth work, but I'd never seen that. So that was the light bulb moment. And then in terms of the characterization, all of the characters really are an accumulation of real people that I've worked with, you know. So I very much wanted the film to be a diary entry in that regard, you know, where I was kind of allowing you into my world.
There's a really chilling moment, actually, when Tyler's mum asks Simon why he does what he does, and he just shrugs his shoulders and says, because it's easy. Mm-hmm. And it makes your blood run cold, to be quite honest, because it's so callous. And I just wondered if that was the sort of answer, or indeed the sort of attitude you've come across in your youth work.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
Lots.
I mean, yeah. When you have to look at it, not that I justify it or excuse it, but you must look at it from Simon's perspective, which is, if no one believes in me or invests in me, then why should I invest in them? You know, if the system's failed me so much and so consistently, that, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to exploit the system. And I'm going to do it in the most efficient, clinical, and economically satisfying way, you know? So from Simon's perspective, it is easy because he's come up through that system, and there has been no reason for him to cross onto the other side of the fence, because there is such a lack of opportunity to come onto the other side of the fence that why not just carry on doing what I'm doing? I worked with a boy once. It's interesting. I was thinking about this, Frida, the other day. I worked with a boy once in East London, and we were sat down and we were talking around all of this. And he said to me, I don't care if I die, because if I did, no one would care. No one would think about me, you know? And I was so upset by that comment because he was like 14, 15. And I didn't know what to really reply to that because I'd only just met him. But when you've got young people who have fostered a relationship with death in that way, it's so troubling, you know, because he felt that there was no value on his life and no one valued his life, you know. So a lot of the youth work that you do with such damage is you're trying to re-empathize a child. You're actually trying to just re-empathize them so they care about themselves, not even the community or the world at large, but just about themselves, you know, where you have to bring some value to them.
And the thing is, with somebody like Simon, he makes them feel that they're valued, but actually he doesn't give two hoots.
Well, he's a predator, isn't he?
Yeah, totally.
You know, and for him, it's about money and status. Yeah. So yeah.
I've got to say, I think Harris Dickinson is brilliant in the role. How did you come across him?
Aisha Bywaters, my casting director, recommended him, and initially I must say I was hesitant because of the headshot that I was sent, and she really fought for him and said, no, please just meet him. And so I did, and he was filming Trust with Danny Boyle at the time, so we had a Skype, and I kind of got off the Skype and I was like, oh God, because I fell in love with him, you know, and I really liked him, and I knew at that point that his heart was in the right place. And you must remember, he was the first to come on the project, and it wasn't another year until we filmed. And I can assure you at that time, Harris didn't need this project, you know?
And trying to hold on to somebody for that long is not easy.
But then also he gave us that belief and that trust, and him and I get on very well, and you know, I'm very thankful for him for demonstrating that level of loyalty to the project.
And presumably Conrad, who plays Tyler, came through the same route through your casting director?
Yes, Aisha did a pretty extensive search. The philosophy around the choice of casting was I wanted qualities. I was looking for vulnerability, you know, with Tyler, and Conrad quite simply inhabited that. And then it was about stress testing him and seeing if he could flip to the other side, which is that, you know, 6 months on. And he did that. He did that very, very effectively as well.
And on the credits, there's a number of people who are described as supporting artists. And I wondered if any of those, or indeed if any of the cast, had been street cast. No.
There was no street casting whatsoever. It was just working with very good, I mean, Aisha's just a brilliant casting director, you know, and she runs the show and tells me to shut up, and that's how I like it, you know. I want my casting director and I want my heads of department to claim their department and say, no, Henry, you're wrong. And that's why I love working with her, you know, and she really spearheaded that whole casting landscape. So I'm very thankful to her.
And you mentioned about all the various people that you've worked with in youth work and how they're sort of reflected in the film. I wondered if there was anything of you in any of the characters that we see there. I'm thinking particularly of Lawrence, who's the teacher who's got a real knack with young people. I've got to say, I think he's great. Even though it's a small role, it's actually a crucial one.
Yeah, he's a beautiful, beautiful actor, Anthony Adjicum, who plays him. I am not confident enough to put myself in it. What I will say, though, what I would say is that he is based on a man who I worked with at a crew, who is a very, very special teacher who I worked with and had a very special connection with every single young person in the crew. And the workload was enormous. And he made a real impact on me, seeing how he interacted with the young people, and really sacrificial element to his work. You know, he was an ex-pro footballer, started working in this crew, and just so brilliant. And he is based Lawrence is based on him.
Yeah, because there is a football conversation.
Yes, yeah. And that's all drawn from me observing that teacher. That I would never sort of put myself in it in that way, but I did want to pay tribute to, you know, colleagues that I've worked with, because they're so brilliant, you know, and it's a tough job, and it's a tough world to be in.
And the film itself is getting sort of like a second wind, because of course earlier on in the year it was just out on digital, and now, all things being equal, please, it is going to be in cinemas as of December. How do you feel about people being able to see it on the big screen?
It's my preferred format, obviously, you know, but I recognize that, you know, there's been a global pandemic that might damage a little bit the trust of that behavior. I must say though, I've been to the cinema a number of times during this whole process, and the staff and the management have done an extraordinary job. And so, you know, if you can get to your local indie cinema and really support them, that's amazing. If you can't, get online and watch it.
Yeah, I have to say my experience of going to the cinema has been the same as yours. It's been terrific. So
yeah, wonderful.
Long may it continue.
Sure, for sure. Viva la cinema. Viva la cinema.
Absolutely. Henry, thank you so much for your time. It's been great talking to you. And like I say, thank you so much for the film as well. It's great.
Thank you, Frida. Thank you very much. Bye.
Cheers now. Bye-bye.